Today on TQA Weekly, learn why I consider WPS a cancer and not a feature of any wireless router. This is TQA Weekly. I'm your host, Steve Smith, aka Z-Axis, and yes, you may call me that. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, and/or horror stories, email me at ask@tqaweekly.com. I'm going to be talking about the WPS feature, also named as Wi-Fi Protected Setup, and the show notes to that are at tqaweekly.com/SE3EP05. What is the Wi-Fi Protected Setup? Well, it is a simplified utility for your novice users out there that use WPA secured wireless networks. Basically make it easy for them to connect their new printers or other devices and cell phones to the network without racking their head or with lengthy manuals or technical support calls that can be very expensive. It is using an 8-digit PIN number normally printed on the underneath side using a physical or virtualized button. Sometimes just a query of the router suffices to activate this feature. And it is required to be by the Wi-Fi certification to be turned on by default, just like Universal Plug and Play UPnP. Now, of course, this 8-digit PIN number only contains numbers, which means it is 10 to the power of 8 in force against hackers, or basically it would take you a theoretical 1 out of 100 million probability of being able to guess said PIN number, which is not in fact true because of the way it's actually treated. It is separated into two. The first 4 digits validated for you before the last 4 digits validated for you. The first 4 digits are actually a 1 in 10,000 possibility of guessing it, and the last 4, which are basically the first 3 are the PIN, the last one is a checksum, is a 1 in 1,000 chance, making it a 10 million, not the full 100 million, because a checksum can be determined by simply calculating the rest of the digits using a mathematical equation. So in other words, it's only, 10% as strong as a conventional 8-digit PIN number. So already there we know that if they were to treat it as a whole, it would be 10 times safer. Now to give you an idea, an 8-digit or 8-character PIN, including capital and small characters, which would be 62 to the power of 8, would actually give you a possibility of being able to guess the password as in 1 in 218,340,105,584,896. That's still not secure, by the way. Needless to say, using their 8-digit numerical PIN, not secure for 10 cents. And the only way to make that whole WPS thing safer is by turning it off, which you can't always. If you're using a Cisco or Linksys router with WPA, you're not going to be able to turn it off. If you have other types of routers, it is very possible that it is not at all able to be turned off, even if you have the switch. I have one of these infamous routers, the D-Link DIR655 revision A. I have been able to confirm, even with the switch off, it is not off. And by the way, mine has a printed PIN number and a button on the side. The only way to make your router safer is by swapping out the firmware, which you can't always do easily. So if you have a router that can have the firmware swapped, and the only way, by the way, to confirm this is by going to dd-wrt.com, basically swap it with Tomato. Tomato is a firmware that you can install on routers that is extremely good, that does not support the WPS feature, and doesn't need to, since it doesn't need to be certified by the Wi-Fi Alliance. So go ahead and install that if you can. If you can, go to my show notes. I have a link to an Amazon product, which is the Apple Airport, which is what I believe is what routers should actually do. So what Apple did with their Airport routers is they made a WPS feature by default turned off. It is only on when you're inside the control panel, which means you have to actually be connected to it. It's only on when you activate this feature, use the unique to session PIN number, and then once it's connected, it is turned back off. Now, what would happen if somebody tried to guess the pin of your router by trying to brute force it? Well, considering that you can basically discount various combinations of pin numbers because they're not going to be used, and you can theoretically do it within 15 seconds per pin, 45 hours, 50 minutes, or until the device either locks up or fails. So, in other words, if you're not able to turn it off and it can't be disabled, somebody can try to guess it. It would take them less than 2 days to get in, or your device router may fail. If it fails, you have to buy a new one, which is not fun either. What happens if they get into your network, and why should you care? Well, if they get into your network, they can see all your files that are shared. It's not all your files, but any file that is shared. They can write to any folder that has the writing feature enabled, which I hope you didn't do. And in the cases of folders where they can write to it, they can inject viruses and Trojans that could basically record everything you're typing, all your screens. They can encrypt your hard drives, basically delete your hard drive, make your computer unusable, infect it, making it a bot network, allowing it to send out millions of spam messages a day, getting you kicked off your ISP, basically compromising your identity, all your data, and your ability to connect onto the internet. In other words, a lot of crap can happen if somebody successfully got into your network through this bug. They can start infecting a whole lot of things, but it gets even worse. If you have things like UPnP on, they can punch holes into your firewall, allowing anybody from the outside world to connect in. So if somebody really wanted to be nasty with you, they can connect through the WPS bug and then wreak havoc to your whole network and all the data inside. None of your computers would be safe anymore, and if you didn't have externalized backups like an external hard drive that is not connected and on your computer while the computer is being infected, you lost everything. This is where having backups, not using WPS enabled routers comes into play. So like I said, dd-wrt.com to verify if your router is in the list. If it's not, get yourself a router that is in that list, or if you don't want to change the firmware yourself, just get something that's already done out of the box. It's actually absolutely good. tqaweekly.com/se3ep05. There's a link to an Amazon product, the Apple Airport, and that product at least does not have WPS on by default. So that is my suggested product of the day. Next week, I'll be talking about the differences between WEP and WPA and explain why WPA is the only one of the two you should ever use on a wireless network, and look at all of WPA and all the features and everything about it that makes it more secure over WEP. Remember to like this episode if you're interested in today's topic, share if you think someone else could possibly learn something from it, and subscribe if you wish to learn more. For more information like the show notes, how to join our weekly newsletter, how to send me your questions, comments, suggestions, and or stories, or other ways to subscribe to the show, head over to tqaweekly.com. Thank you for listening. Have a great day. Stay safe and online. Goodbye.